I have no backup today. All right. And then I do this. I click on the share screen. I always forget to turn on the sound. And this time I won't have Chris and Chrissy to make fun of me when I get to turn on the sound. So we do that.
Welcome to Everyone Racers, a show designed for the world of low-dollar racing and oddball car culture. It doesn't matter what kind of Limit Champ or Lucky Track Dog League you run, SCCA or NASA, we don't discriminate. As long as you drive it hard and built it yourself. Join us each week for tech discussions, tips and tricks, as well as news and notes from the world of amateur endurance racing. And whether it's on the spot, hella sweet, or we're lucky enough, and Chrissy gives us just the tip, we're sure you'll giggle a little and learn even less. Everyone report to the paddock.
All right. This is Mental. There is no Chris. There is no Chrissy. There is no Jeff. There's only Mental and Eric Rood, fifth host Eric Rood, no doubt questioning his life choices, but no one will question your fashion choices with that hat. That hat is awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. I initially had a really good intro for this, but you know what? We're just going to call this a Cheeseburger in Paradise episode. All right. You may not have cared so much for the music, but guy like that lived life on his own terms. Godspeed, Mr. Buffett. It is episode 310. Don't even bother with a bingo card. It's in the same location, but you're not going to get bingo because Eric's going to actually make this interesting. So sorry if you're waiting on the bingo, but stay with us. It's going to be a good show. I promise. Yeah. It's not just me.
No pressure there for me, right? No pressure. It's going to be dynamite.
That's why I'm here, because no matter what, you're going to be the best, the top 50%, of the entire. Right. So as we often talk about, Eric, what are you working on? And don't burn too much, because I got a bunch of questions for you down the bottom. But
perfect. What am I working on? Well, at the moment, I was at a Labor Day picnic with my family, extended family, and my uncle asked me, "Hey, what kind of project car do you have?" And at the moment, I do not have a project car, because my project car is my house, which is a 100-year-old bungalow just outside of Chicago. So lots of house projects, pretty much keeping me busy at all times. So,
and you knew you were going to get a cool house because you married another architecture enthusiast.
Yes. Yeah. My wife, Amanda, is a historic preservationist who loves old houses. So we have an old house with a lot of character, which then comes with a lot of character building. So that's pretty much what's going on for me for the last year and a half of my life.
The kid just hasn't had a birthday, or just had a birthday, but still isn't old enough for you to exploit labor on that one. Is she?
Yeah. We're not quite to the captive audience, hold the tools while I swear at the thing yet. So maybe in a year or two, I think she'll be ready for that.
Well, and I like the character building. It reminds me of the old Calvin and Hobbes, where how come every time, I'm building character, you're saving $1?
Yeah, there is that. It turns out with old houses, a lot of what you spend most of your time doing is undoing the hack job by the previous guy who was just like you 35 years ago doing the same renovation. So, always an adventure.
I sympathize. My house is still bare sheet. Well, you can see the bare sheetrock here and floor. And instead of fixing all that, we're going to have an expansion put on the house. So
as you do.
As you do. Well, because then we can move the laundry room out of the kitchen, and then we can redo the kitchen. And once the kitchen's done, then we can pay attention to the rest of the house. There's a logic to it.
But yeah, I mean, there's no difference, as we've already gone way off the rails. There's no difference between this and the car that you build for Lemons, where you have this master plan where you're going to spend years developing the car, sorting out every single one of its problems, and being very methodical about it over a dozen races that you're going to run. And then like 3 races and you're like, no, it needs a new motor. And then we're going to put a turbo on it. And, everything has gone far off the rails at that point. So the methodical plan immediately gets thrown away, is what I'm saying.
Yes, absolutely. All right, good. So I was, well, you were mentioning, I think
Yeah,
before we started recording, you just said you were at a extended family Labor Day picnic. How was your holiday?
It was great.
Good.
My daughter Lily had her birthday on Saturday, and then Sunday we went to the Rood family picnic every year. My dad and his 8 siblings get together, and with as much of the extended family as can make it, and we just kind of hang out by the lake and catch up. It's always very laid back. In true Midwest fashion, there is an abundance of food, even for the small army that the Roods are. So, it was pretty laid back. We also dumpster dived a fire pit from down the block last winter, I think. And we finally like dusted that off, and then had a bunch of fires in our yard when neighbors came up. It was really nice. It was a good laid back weekend.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
All right. I didn't. I Sunday I was doing filming for a show, the Rami show, and we'll talk about that listener feedback. And then actually yesterday, you don't know this, everyone else who listens to the show, Chuck Squiglitaria used to write for Popular Mechanics, is loaning me his Porsche 911 because he's having his foundation report. I know I'm willing to take that sacrifice because I'm a good friend. So I've been driving his 95 993 around. And so yesterday, with the weather finally not in scalding or flood, which is basically what Las Vegas has had the last couple of weeks, a group of the Porsche enthusiasts here in the local area took a lovely drive through the Lake Mead recreation area. It was fantastic. And that was it. And then I finally bolted back together the intake on the Mercedes, the 6.3 AMG, and it is dead. So that was not the problem. The intake gaskets, and combined with a host of other issues that the car has, it is on its way to the next great adventure, which probably involves a you pull it lot and someone coming to get the car. So if you want an AMG, come get it, but you've got like 3 days because I've got to leave Thursday to head up to Denver for the High Plains event. And we don't,
sorry, RIP the battle wagon.
It was a great car. It is the lowest mileage Mercedes V8 I've ever had, 180,000 miles. It lived a great life. It served me well. The car owes me nothing. And I am resisting the urge to fall into the sunk cost fallacy of the car, but it was a great ride. But
that's also known as the Mercedes trap.
That's really, I should just put it on a buy here, pay here lot, and I'll probably sell it 9 times over.
There you go.
So we'll move on to news and notes. It's not going to be nearly as dramatic because I don't have Chrissy's voice, but we'll start with, we live in a world where every high-end exotic car maker has an SUV, and I'm not going to lie, that just plain sucks. Lamborghini started it all. Now, right now, half the audience is nodding their head and the other half is making that RCA dog face at their computer. Now, the people that know what the RCA dog is also know that Lamborghini started the entire thing. Ursra Driver at Car and Driver, and that's fun to say 10 times fast, has a comparison test between the original Lamborghini LM002, that just late 80s, early 90s proposed military machine, and the latest Lamborghini Urus. It is a great article and you should read it. But the point of this entire news note is to remind everyone who knew this and educate those who didn't that Lamborghini made an SUV in the 80s. Now, Dyer describes it as, quote, a freak, an epic miscalculation by a brand that could not afford a dud. And the best part of that SUV, not an automatic option available. Link is in our show notes. It's worth a read. It's really cool. All right, I see Eric nodding over there because the
LM 002, I guess. I don't know how you correctly pronounce the alphanumeric designation, but it looks like somebody described a Humvee over the phone, and then it went back and forth through a Google translator several times. Basically, it's just the most awkward looking thing. But it was a Lamborghini. and it had a stick.
V12 stick, carburetors under glass. It was, and the one that they found, Lamborghini actually doesn't even own any of these. They have to arrange for any testing with private owners. And this one belonged to a Japanese business person who had their own privateer Formula One team. So this thing is just, if you've never seen the LMO2, you're missing out, because that is a beautiful, beautiful machine.
It's got the same kind of crazy person energy that most TVRs do, where it's just so absolutely insane that like you can't do anything but like it, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of automatics, Nico Di Maria at the Drive has some troubling news from Mini. At a press event for the new Mini Cooper, Stephanie Wurst, who is the Mini Cooper boss, said that they told Top Gear, we won't have a manual, unfortunately, which is odd because the take rate currently on the manuals is 45%, which that has to be peak manual selection for, I can't think of any car
for
out
not
there
a Miata.
For not a Miata. Hell. All right. A Mini USA spokesperson confirmed Worst comments to the Drive, adding that, quote, the current generation models that feature manuals are expected to be produced right after the end of February 2024. Minis with no manuals. That is, it's end times.
Yeah. I mean, if what they were really trying to do, which, you know, I think you could make a pretty sane argument that they stopped giving a crap about it 15 years ago. But if what they were really trying to do with the Mini was to revive the classic Mini with a, you know, modernization of it, you know, getting rid of the manual is absolutely the dumbest thing you can do. In that, you know, every Mini that you had bought from 1962 till 2004, maybe there was an automatic option, but I mean, they had to have been 95% manuals. You know, it was the fun car to drive, and by not having a manual, I don't understand with an economy car how you can claim that it is fun to drive at that point. It's just become an economy car. Yeah.
If you've got no torque, a valve body automatic makes no sense, and there's no way they're putting a dual clutch in that. So probably some sort of
it is
awful CVT.
It is BMW, so it may be a dual clutch that is completely overbuilt and pointless. But you know,
and the 98-cent servo that has 37 hours to replace fails.
Yep, that sounds correct. So no, I think Mini lost their way as a brand. You know, I don't know, whenever they started building more Clubmans than the actual Minis.
Drove one of the new Clubmans, the 4-doors, and the design, they said they wanted it. They had barn doors on the back of it. It was a really good small Suburban and a 3-cylinder turbo. It was a great little car. And it was like, oh, it's not Mini. And it really was. It was a very tiny little car, really good for people that live in the city. And with the manual, it was a hoot, but you know, I mean, what are you going to do now? So yeah, I'm sure they'll sell lots of convertibles. Speaking of small, fun cars, go ahead. No,
I was just gonna say Minis, by the way, the original Coopers, great Lemons cars.
Yes.
You wouldn't think so, but they are.
It's a tractor motor. There's just nothing more attached to it. And then if you by some chance manage to actually pop one, a single cam Honda will drop right in there.
Yeah.
And then you still have a great car that's really quick. Road and Track just published their moving on their Road and Track list of small cars for 2023 and 24. And Brian Silvestro points out, quote, the automotive landscape is dominated by big trucks and SUVs, with the market for smaller sedans, coupes, and hatchbacks shrinking every day. And that will shrink more with Mini not having manuals. They do have a list of what's available. I don't want to go all the way through this list, but they did add the qualifier, it needs to be fun, which makes me question a lot of choices that are on this list. It is 21 cars. No surprise that 5 of them are Hondas. 4 of them are in the top 10.
Yeah.
But they've got, of course, the number one is the Type R, followed by the Acura Integra Type S, which I think is a better car and a little bit less racery, but I'm also a middle-aged man. They've got the Toyobaru twins. And this is a good one is, they list the 2024 GR Corolla and they said it's only $37,000. Good luck finding one of those for $37,000. Never going to happen. They do mention the Hyundai Elantra N. I drove Jeff's, in his the hatchback, not the Elantra, but that is a great car and that is a super fun car. And if I wasn't so married to the idea of rear wheel drive, I might have one of those instead of a Miata. They go through the Volkswagens, the Subaru WRX. I know I'm not ironing my hats. The Acura Aceback, but then they come down here. They do mention the Mazda 3 Turbo because they don't make the Mazda Speed 3, but that's a great little car. We hated the hatchback when we saw it at the show, but it's a good one. They say the Toyota Prius, and I know that's going to give everyone pause, but look at the 2024 Prius. That is a good looking car. And our friends over at Apex Adjacent got to drive one at a press launch. And Ian makes it a point of telling the story of how he caught one of those drive a supercar through the mountain, like, the tours. And it was a Ferrari, an Aston, and a Lambo. And he passed all of them in this Prius. And the Lambo didn't want to let him do it, but had no choice. So that is a cool car. Where I start getting into the questionable stuff is number 18 is a Nissan Versa. There has never been anything fun about a Versa. Yes, you can get it with a manual. You'll have to order it because they don't keep any on the lot, but that is a soul sucking appliance. And then the last one is the Mitsubishi Mirage, which is either dying this year or next year. I don't know. I had someone get into an online argument trying to convince me that it's a fun car. I just can't get there. I have eaten pizzas bigger than the tires on that.
Yeah. I understand the point of the Mirage. I completely understand why it exists. It is like that and the Versa are the last gasp of the real beater econo box. Like that just doesn't exist anymore. And I would argue they're virtually the same money. I would probably buy a Mirage over the Versa, even though it's going to be slower and it's built by Mitsubishi. But man, the Versa is just, they are absolutely the worst cars I think I've ever driven.
I feel like with the Mirage, you could like try to, come at it from like some sort of nouveau artsy douchevo, kind of a deal. Like, yes, I know it's a crappy car. The Versa is just one step above an Altima. And
it's an Altima for half the price, basically. The Mirage has, ironically, it's called a Mirage, which is funny because it is the one car you can buy that is exactly what it says it is. It is the cheapest form of transportation you can buy. There are no illusions about what you're getting with it. It is a car. You just want to plunk down money for a car. Mirage. That should really be their marketing slogan for it in the final year. Is,
it's a car.
Looking for a car? We have car.
And the reason
Mitsubishi
I wanted
Mirage,
the Mitsubishi Mirage, we have car. We have car. This entire list of small fun cars that are available, I give it, actually, for the Versas, I'm surprised we haven't seen more of them. And the Mirages, I feel like this is a shopping list in 10 years for future Lemons cars.
Yeah. Totally. I wouldn't bat an eye. And boy, I almost had somebody talked into doing it. During the pandemic, when car prices were really low, you could find stuff that had just been sitting on the lot. And a particularly big ideaed Lemons person found a brand new like 18 Mitsubishi Mirage that had been sitting on a lot in Washington State for like $8,200 new. And he almost plunked down the money and had it shipped and caged. And I would have been like, class C 0 laps for that all day because it was a stick too.
Oh, so, man, yeah,
winning all the way around.
Totally.
But then the market went completely insane about 6 months after that.
Yes, it has not gotten any better. But even if you don't quite want a lemons one of those, I feel like Gambler 500, that would be a hilarious gambler car. So especially if you find one of those with a stick.
Yeah.
So there you have it, folks. All right, an exclusive that not that anyone's listened to this episode once they realize Chris and Christy weren't here. But Eric will give you Class C 0 laps in a Mitsubishi Mirage, and I don't know of a judge that would disagree with that decision.
Yeah. No.
All right. Now, Eric, I'm sorry we have a bit of ugly selling out to do, but I think you'll have comments on this. If you have one of these small cars, you can easily fit, some of them in this sweet camper car hauling conversion that we found on RacingJunk. Now, when I say conversion, bear in mind, as I share this, I know that they misspelled it and it is a COVERSION there.
Oh, man.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that is the one car that'll fit in there. I think that's correct.
Yeah. And I bet you it's a stick shift Mini Cooper, but
I bet you're right.
Yeah, this is it's a former senior citizen bus. They converted it. So they opened the door up on there so it could haul a small car or motorcycles, and it goes through and it mentions Formula V's and that kind of stuff. So it's a 2000 F350 with only 94,000 miles, which is actually really good for one of those 350s. The drivetrains are fairly stout. It's got ramps, it's got a power winch, it's got a Bug-Eye Sprite, a midget, a mini, that'll all fit in there. When it's unloaded, you basically got a car hauler. So it's got a bed, a dining table, kitchenette, computer center kind of folds down, got solar panels on the roof. You've got outlets and accessories and stuff like that. There are 10 pictures in this ad. Now it is up in Connecticut, but it's only $8,700. And as weird, silly conversion things go, you could do a lot worse. We have seen a lot worse than this thing.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, I mean, it's a very narrow use case, but yeah, if you are, man, there's a Lemons guy out of Kansas City who raced Formula V's for years and almost sold me on when he was getting rid of his, and it's a cheap way to go, real racing, and this is the perfect setup for that,
especially if you're a stay at the track kind of person. So yeah,
yeah.
So that's a good one on there. And this comes down to our thing, folks. Just go to RacingJunk, do the pod 23. It's less than a meal at Applebee's. You'll get the RacingJunk Pro membership. It's stupid cheap. 5 ads, 50 photos, that whole 9 yards, all of the bigger thumbnails, access to early ads. But the thing, even if you're not going to join that, just go to RacingJunk. If you find yourself getting angry on Facebook and Instagram, RacingJunk will make you happy. It really, because you'll find silly stuff like this. All right. Speaking of being happy, we have upcoming races, and this is where Eric is contractually obligated to not speak until I get to the third one, and that's totally fine. Champ Cars at Mid-Ohio. They've got 58 cars. 21 of them are BMWs. Somewhere in a Cadillac Escalade, cruising through the Northeast. Chris and Chrissy are both going, boring. And they are right. There are 11 Miatas, 5 Hondas, 9 Porsches, and 1 very brave Saturn SC2. You go. Lucky Dog is going to be at the Ridge. They've got 64 cars, only 14 BMWs, but they do have 17 Miatas, 7 Hondas, a Porsche, and Eric, they've got a 98 Escort. All right. Finally, Lemons is at High Plains Raceway for the True 24, the Get Your Fill. Is that what you're still calling it? It'll always be that to me.
It's the High Plains Drifter, but yeah, the Get Your Fill, if you'd rather.
All right. Well, and he'll be there, I think.
He'll be hanging around.
Yeah, he'll stop by. 72 cars. Out of 70 cars, only 12 of them are BMWs, and one of them is actually still kind of interesting. 3 Miatas, one of them's a swapped. It's awesome. 4 Hondas, 3 Porsches, and this is an all-star entry of proven bad decision makers and newcomers. Do Not Pass Me in a PT Cruiser. Something wrong with my, Are you saying there's something wrong with my gear? Savage Orchid, Drop Bear Murphys, Turbo Encapulators, TDI Soar, Breaking Bad. There's a 68 Satellite. There's a Brat. There's a Chevette. There are multiple Geos. What am I missing? This is going to be a fantastic event.
Yeah. Man, what else? There's a Chrysler Crossfire. Petrosexuals got the
Oh yes, that's
Crossfire,
right.
which is great. It's a V6 automatic unless they swapped it, which I don't think they
I
did.
don't think they did.
We'll talk about the Jaguar in a minute.
Yes, I am
That
very
is
excited
amazing.
about this Jaguar.
There's a Chevette and a Corvette, which is always great. I love that.
Well, and the Corvette is actually going to be driven by some somewhat of Lemon's celebrity drivers. You've got Anton's coming in to drive it. Nick is going to be driving it. Some long-haired part-time judge who's got a podcast is going to be up there driving it. But yeah, it's going to be a good time.
Yeah, that's Salty Thunder's Corvette. Every time Jeff Hank is stopping over in Chicago, we usually go catch up. And I've known about that Corvette for a few years. It has been the slow, methodical build over many years, which is, funny to end up with a C4 Corvette as a result. But
and
that's just how Jeff rolls.
He had that in the Chevette at the first event, the spring event that Chris and Chrissy were at, and it's pretty epic because and actually I'm sorry, I said Chevette. It's a Pontiac T1000 that his son
That's
had,
right.
and it was gorgeous. Everyone was in love with that car. It was so fantastic. I don't think it came in the penalty box at all, which is great considering it was his kid. So this Corvette is
a couple other things. The No Pet Boys Honda CRX. I believe that is the car that Chris Overzet built and raced at Altamont way back in the day. I think that's an Altamont car, which is awesome. And then the SS Impalia is it's a 96 Caprice. It might even be an Impala. I'm not sure, but dang old 350 and a T5 swap. And those guys show up about once every 5 years. And that thing, it's fast for about 2 hours, but it sounds incredible. I don't know what they do to that motor. I don't actually care because it's in a 4,000-pound boat, but it is one of the best sounding small block Chevys I've ever heard. And
that's high praise because you have heard a lot of them.
Yeah. Well, maybe not quite as sonorous as the Thunderbird with the built motor in it that races around the South. But, as far as normal small blocks go, this one sounds pretty great. So look forward to that one too. And it's Colorado. The themes are always out of this world too. So always really great.
Little bit of insider baseball. Because I'm going, I know that Tom Webb is one of the judges. Are you allowed to tell us who else?
Yeah, so Mary Harris, another one of the judges
that's
from
awesome.
Tetanus Racing. So she's judging the home race because she hates to race in the 24 hours in the long races. So she wanted to work instead of race. You got Bob Griffin from Escape Velocity in Houston, all-timer guy there, and Corey Dickman from Ranwood Park. So it's kind of an all-star cast of, they have more IOEs than you do, probably, is if you're wondering about their credentials, generally speaking. I think
Corey with the Trojan rather took the lead of most IOEs.
He's in the top 3, I think, along with Spank and Jeff. So I think he's in the gold circle. Maybe Bob Mitchell with NSF is got his IOE gold card also. But some of the most affluent people in Lemons are judging this race, so it should be pretty entertaining.
Outstanding. All right.
We should talk about the Jag real quick.
All right. So, I remember this Jag, and I think we had to park them within 2 hours last year.
Yeah, so they had some driving issues. It's actually Chris Overzet's old Jaguar, that raced out on the West Coast for years. It's had a small block Chevy forever. He sold it. It ended up in the Midwest, like racing and club racing. I don't know in what freaking class a 76 XJS is gonna land.
But that's a club I want to join. I want to. They probably like. You know what? We have to let this thing in. It's too awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So whoever had that thing was done with. They sold it to this guy Vince in Colorado, and I don't know that much about them, but they sent an email to Nick after their last race. They had apparently blown or bent two rods in the V8 small block Chevy. And so they thought, well, we got another car we want to build. How do we make this last? So I'll just read what he wrote to Nick, because it's one of the craziest things I've ever read from a Lemons person. So here we go. I'm going to tack weld pistons 5 and 6 in place. For 5 and 6, I've tapped the crank oil channels for those journals and will install an oil plug and tack weld in place for good measure. We'll weld lifters for 5 and 6 and TDC, keep oil pressure, but remove push rods and rocker arms so the valves don't move. I'll also be welding patches in the oil pan. Got to keep the exit wounds. I bought an Engine Tech rebuild kit for $220, which includes marginal new pistons and questionable gaskets. For fuel, we're going to bend the spark plugs on 5 and 6 to dead short and leave the distributor and carb alone. Miscellaneous parts come out to $350 and a fucking ton of time to get this V6 a shot. I still have to fix the front brakes, blah, blah, blah. So what he has done is he's taken a 350 and decommissioned 2 cylinders in the jankiest way possible. And he's going to run it as a V6. There's a video of it. He got it to run this week. It's on Instagram, and it
I'm gonna get this link from you, and we are gonna put this link in our show notes, because I've got to see this. This is wonderful.
There's like a whooshing noise where it's missing the 2 cylinders. It's incredible. So they're gonna run that until it blows up. And he does have another small block Chevy to throw in it when that blows up, but he kind of just wanted to do this, and I love that. It is one of the craziest things, because this is the kind of stuff that, oh man, we want to take 2 laps at the end and we'll, disconnect the cylinders and,
this is Saturday night,
cut up cans.
4 a.m. decisions.
Yeah. Right. This guy's doing it in his driveway, weeks before the race. He's deciding to do this. So, I mean, this is a heroic effort already in my book. So this guy's, you do this kind of stuff and show up, we're pretty much going to hurl a trophy at you, because this is incredibly stupid. And his goal, as he says in this email, is to finish a 24-hour race with the V6. So and he's also wanted to but never has rebuilt an engine, so he's a novice at it for good measure. So this is so wonderful. Nothing, because they brought a spare engine. It's like the Nugget from Dirty Night Mike and the Boys. They bring the hot rod engine, it blows, and then they throw the 305, try to make it blow, and it lasts. It won't. Yeah.
All right.
So
hero the Jaguar,
those guys
24 hours. Because he's got a spare engine, so they'll finish the race no matter what. But on this V6, this self-made V6, what is your target range? Give me 2 hours out of 24 that you think this thing's going to last.
Man, well, suddenly you're into the whole what is time mental, is because what's going to happen is
before that engine
2 minutes in.
Yeah, I'll say before that engine comes out and they drop the new one in there.
All right, I see.
How many hours will it be on the track?
All right, you're not asking about how many laps it's going to do. We're talking about it's the time it will survive of 24 hours before they are pulling the motor. Yeah, I will say it sounds like he's really dedicated. I'm going to say 7 hours. I think they're going to try everything to make it go, and unless it hucks a rod immediately, they're going to be pulling out all this. Well, it already has all the stops put in it. You really wouldn't want to pull those out. But anyway, they're going to be trying really hard.
Welded
to make it work.
Well, and I feel like they're all going to get the brief of, look, do not over rev it. The fact that they're bringing a spare engine, because normally I would say it's going to last 7 minutes. They're bringing a spare engine. Murphy has been offered a sacrifice. I think this thing's going to make it 12 hours.
Yeah. All right. I like it. I like it.
What do you think post in the comments, get a hold of us on the social media. How long do you think this welded up 2 cylinders Jaguar V6 is going to make it? I'm so glad you saved that and didn't tell me when we were setting this up, Eric. I'm going to laugh all night over this. That is just so wonderful. Oh,
it's amazing.
God. So we'll move on to listener feedback real quick. Ashley and Eric K, they were digging the supercharged Land Rover D's90 that I was driving this weekend filming for the Rami show. Eric, you'll appreciate this. My friend Rami took an LSX out of a CTSV with a 6-speed, put it in a 72 Defender D90.
Ooh.
It's ripped the engine mounts off of it 4 times. Under acceleration, it will still just straight line acceleration. It will lift the driver's side front wheel. And I'm trying to maintain exactly 40 miles an hour while we are filming another car for a show. That was a challenge. I got new dog collars for my dogs because I'm an idiot. I paid too much for a Gulf and a Martini Racing livered weed. And so everyone that participated in the dog poll, thank you. Cheech, the weenie dog, ended up with the Gulf collar, and Moko, the rat dog, ended up with the Martini Racing one. And on our last episode where we were shopping for fantasy money, everyone loved Chrissy's Vanagons. And then we were actually even DM'd a few more, and these all actually ran. Chrissy had found these 2 Vanagons in one of our fantasy shopping episodes, didn't read the description. Neither one of them were functional. And then finally, everyone who's been participating and voting on that OSCA poll to get Uncle Dave farther up in the e-racing. Thank you. Thank you all very, very much. I think it's still underway, but check that out. Keep an eye out. Go Uncle Dave. Everyone likes Uncle Dave. No one has ever went, God, Dave Carpenter, I hate that guy. So he's good dude and he deserves it. And he's rocking this really cool Mark Martin livery from when he crashed out and they duct taped the car. And this is, of course, it's e-racing. So Ron Harrington, Ronster Raps, got him this tribute livery. It's fantastic. So he hopes he makes it out there. Awesome. And even though I know she's not listening because her daughter's not on this, I still am going to say hi to Chrissy's mom. Because
hi, Chrissy's mom.
Hello, Chrissy's mom. And if you are listening, thank you. I appreciate your support. But let's move on to the main topic. We have drug Eric Rood, and this is the best part, is because he texted me and said, I have no agenda. So he's not on a PR tour.
Yeah, I got nothing. Yeah.
All right. On the absolute bizarre chance that someone is listening to the show and they're like, who is Eric Rood? Who is Eric Rood?
Oh, yeah. As my business cards will tell you, I am the everything bagel with the 24 hours of lemons. It's my actual job title. Do a little bit of everything. So I manage some of the registration and questions that come in, and I manage some of the people at the races, and I do the judging. I do media. I do video hosting. I do a little bit of everything, you might say, although I'm not really a fan of everything bagels, which is kind of ironic. But yeah,
what is your favorite bagel? Because you're a Chicago guy, so that this carries some heft.
Man, I don't know. I really don't eat very many bagels. I like a blueberry bagel, I guess. I have a sweet tooth.
Fair enough.
So,
okay.
Yeah. What are you gonna do? And yeah, so I raced lemons several years ago, built a car with my friend Alan Caesar, who went on to do auto journalism. I also did some auto journalism after that, and then
Discovery Channel screwed you. Don't mince words.
That's right.
Screw Discovery Channel. You were doing awesome stuff. You were doing the drag week coverage. You and Elaine or Shore. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. You guys were writing for Roadkill. It was fantastic. I'd actually started buying magazines from a newsstand again, but then Discovery Channel had to come along and screw it all up.
Man, I gotta say, the Roadkill magazine, the finished product was spectacular. It was really visually driven. It was a nice printed on heavy paper, it's the kind of thing that people would keep. It was the whole idea.
Yeah,
and
I remember
got axed. So
yeah, I'm an old enough person to remember the original Trans World Skateboarding magazines, and it was the same concept.
Yeah.
Brilliant photography, splashing all over there, quality work. Yeah, and Roadkill was the same way. And stupid Discovery Channel.
Yeah. Yeah. So we got the publishing budget got axed, and then the freelancing budget got axed, and then they put everything behind a paywall. Whatever. Doesn't really matter. Anyway, I'm doing lemons now full time, so this is my full-time gig. Yeah, so you'll see me at half the races in a given year, typically.
Well, and
most of
we're
the
all
East Coast
luckier for it.
Well, I don't know about that, but I also have we were talking about this before. I have a brain full of useless and very specific lemons information, and I have kind of become the clearinghouse of lemons info. So if you ever need to know anything about lemons or are curious about something, you can always email me, Eric at 24 Hours of Lemons, and I'm happy to look that kind of stuff up. So
I know we get some odd questions. Anyone's ever done this before? And we'll go, we don't remember, but email Eric. Yeah. I know that I've sent some questions your way. And then usually the answer is, it's been done 3 times before, once here, once here, once here, never successfully. Here's what you need to do.
Yeah. I mean, the one that's come up recently, I don't know why. Well, I've definitely been pushing people to do it, but anyway, the Subaru SVX has come up a few times in the last few weeks, and yeah, you look like you have an SVX.
No, I just want to see one. This would be fantastic.
Yeah.
I also encourage this.
You ever notice how like stuff comes up for sale in like waves? Like you won't see like an SVX for sale for like 2 years, and then you'll run across like 5 of them in a month. I mean, it's one of those things that kind of happened. So I posted them, and somebody else had posted a couple other ones. And so, it became, oh man, has there ever been an SVX? And I think we've had 2 of them, and one of them did like 2 laps at 1 race, and another one did like 10 laps at 2 races. So the answer is yes, but it's a pretty low bar to clear to have the best SVX in lemons. So they're out there, and they're perfectly weird cars. So
and I love that you're pushing this, because you just posted in the Lemons forum. You had that you basically went through eBay and found a bunch of bad Malays, not even Malays area. It was like post Malays, like 80s GM products. Because you're a proud son of the Midwest, and you love you some, good old fashioned GM 4-door sedans.
Yeah. No, it was, we post whatever the eBay find of the week, I think on Saturdays on the official Lemons stuff. And so our social media guy, Dylan McClelland, his name is a really sharp guy, but he's not like super versed in how to find like really good lemon stuff. So he'll send me like a half dozen potentials, and he'd be like, well, which one this week? I get to pick one, which is great. And then, I think it was last week or the week before, he sent me a bunch, and I was like, I'm not really feeling any of these. And like, went to like search Buick, and it was just like gold. And I was like, wow, it's an embarrassment of riches. So I better share this with everybody. So, I mean, yeah, there was like a Buick LeSabre hearse, an Oldsmobile.
I do remember the LeSabre hearse. That was fantastic. I had an Olds diesel. I had an Olds 88 Regency diesel with the bag of marbles in the intake, GM clattering. Oh, what a terrible car.
Yeah, but when it ran, man, like driving a couch. So
crush velour, the button tucked interior. Mm-hmm.
My favorite item on big GM luxury cars was always the door pull, because it was like it's like the big rectangular pull, but then it's got like this crappy fake velvet like all over it. So like, you go to grab the door pull, and because you're pulling shut like 140-pound door, you need the leverage of this giant thing. But then also, everything around it is, this soft padded whatever the hell thing that they have killed to make them. And yeah, it's just,
And
it's this
invariably that door
classic.
pull is coming off because it's held on with like a friggin' sheet metal screw
No,
with a
no, no,
chrome
no.
thing on top of it.
It's the one thing they've used like the properly torqued bolt on, because that mother is never coming off there, ever, never. You know, the rest of the door will fall off. The pull will still be there. You know, yeah, just quality GM stuff.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, so we're gonna have I gotta go dig up that forum and find that link, because I killed half a day with that, but it looked like I was busy because I was staring at my computer screen.
Yeah, there
Scrolling
was
through that
like
one.
an XLR and on a Lante, and you know, you name it. It
Yes.
was pretty spectacular.
So I do want to ask you before we lean into this next question, because it's a diversion. So Subaru SVX, what theme would you want to see with that?
I mean, the
bringing the
one,
SVX is pretty cool, but you and Corey and several of us, we do not. Shelley is notorious for not suffering weak themes. Jeff Stobbs will go off.
Yeah. I mean, an SVX is a theme unto itself, but the type of team that willingly brings an SVX is going to do a theme. And there's some pretty obvious ones. I mean, with an S and an X, you have obviously, you know, the dirty word, the sex word, if I'm going to be subtle about it. But you know, the other one is from RoboCop. You have obviously the 6000 sucks. You know, you just turn the
God,
V
that's
into
right.
a U.
The 6000 SUX. Damn it. I'm embarrassed I didn't think of that.
And that's also like the car that they used. I mean, it was a poorly, I don't know, it's just a weird looking car, and the SVX is a weird looking car. So, you know, you could pass it off as the 6000
totally good.
sucks.
Yeah. You paint it up. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think it was a
By
Torino.
the way, I did,
it looked like a Torino in the actual original.
It was an Oldsmobile Cutlass, a B-body Cutlass, and I only know this because it was at the Peterson Museum when I was there. The 6000 sucks was at the museum, and like I was there with Amanda, and you know, we hadn't even been together for like a year at that point, and you know, you're at the Peterson, which is one of the greatest car museums in the world.
I drove out there just to do the movie car exhibit. It was fantastic.
Yeah. I took like 10 times as many pictures of the 6000 sucks as I did of like anything else in the museum. She was like, "Are you okay?" Like, I mean, it's weird looking, but it's not that cool. I was like, you're right, but also it's the 6000 sucks.
Seriously, Red Foreman drove one of these. Come on, you got, you know, have some respect. No, I'm down,
man.
That is fantastic.
So,
a 6000 SUX themed. Okay, because this goes into my obscure knowledge is in the Richard Grieco failed vehicle, where he played the high school French dropout who ended up being a spy, called If Looks Could Kill, where they mistaken him for a CIA agent. Oh goodness, my brain is failing me. Dr. Frankenfurter, Tim, the actor that played in Rocky Horror Picture Show as Dr. Frankenfurter. Him.
Tim Curry.
Tim Curry was the villain, and he drove a Subaru SVX in that one as one of the bad guys. So.
That's a good villain car. I mean, really, like if it's 1992 and you need a villain car, SVX, it just looks wrong in a lot of ways.
Actually, no, I'm sorry. He was the villain in it was a Lethal Weapon knockoff film with Emilio Estevez. He was the villain, but he drove that. I just do remember he drove that car.
Well, whatever that movie is, the movie is the theme. Jesus.
Exactly. Find all the times. A 6000 SUX Subaru SVX. This is a brilliant idea. Someone out there, go find one on eBay, make it happen. Yeah. And honestly, we're not going to promise you Class C 0 laps, because it's a Subaru SVX. You're just going to get Class C 0 laps because it's a Subaru SVX.
I mean, the smart thing to do is to take the big flat six and the automatic transmission and throw them in a dumpster and put like a 2-liter non-turbo and a 5-speed in it. But you know, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm not the boss of you.
It's not like you've seen literally hundreds of these races and you know what good Subaru motors are out there.
Yeah. Well, the transmission is the weak part of the SVX. But
there's a Porsche 914 that has that automatic and 6-cylinder from the Subaru in it. And surprise, it's still for sale somewhere in California because no one wants that.
Wow. Yeah, those some decisions were made. Yeah.
Yes.
That's the guy who thought he was going to beat the system right there.
Yeah. So I went to Monaco this year, and of course, at every race I show up at, everyone was like, "Oh God, tell me about Monaco. Tell me about Monaco." And I don't regret going, and it was wonderful. But so I understand the position I'm putting you in. Tell us about Iceland, because that looked like a wonderful trip.
Yeah, it was. Things about Iceland. One, pictures will never do the scenery justice. It is, you can look at a picture of something and be like, oh, it's pretty there. But the crazy thing about Iceland is it's everywhere. Like, you know, you look there and it's the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. And then, you know, you're as you turn, you're completely surrounded by it in a way that is just, I don't know, really humbling, I guess. But it's a place I've wanted to go since I was a kid. I read, this is like the weirdest, like, how did you find this thing that you wanted to do? But I used to read books constantly, and you know, whatever was around, and my dad had Tom Clancy books, so I read Tom Clancy. And oh god, what is the one
people
where...
of a certain age, we all read Tom Clancy.
Yeah.
I know it's embarrassing now, but at the time it was cool.
I'm blanking on the name of the book, but it's the one where like World War III breaks out, and
got to be a lot more specific.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
Which but there's a Soviet, you know, invasion of Iceland, basically, and you know, because that's where Keflavik is, where the big air base was, and all this stuff, blah blah blah. But you know, one of the protagonists ends up, you know, in the wilderness of Iceland and has to cross, and so, you know, whatever else you can say about Tom Clancy, he described the landscape of Iceland in a way that made, you know, 12-year-old me be like, that sounds like a pretty cool place to go. And then, you know, as you get older and you read a little bit about the place and you see pictures of it, you're like, well, I definitely need to go there. So, you know, it's something I've been working towards for 25 years to go there. So it was a big trip for me. We did the whole ring road. So there's a big road that goes around the island. It's called Ring Road. It's like 700 or 800 miles, and we took 10 days to do it, which, you know, you could definitely take 3 or 4 weeks to do it if you really wanted to see everything. But I was great. I mean, everywhere we joked, like, after like a couple of days of driving, that, you know, it's like you're on a different planet every 20 miles. And so, you know, if you ever wanted to film like a sci-fi series, you know, like a Star Trek kind of deal, you'd go to Iceland and you'd shoot, you know, and you could, within a 50-mile whatever, you could, you know, shoot 15 different you know, landscapes that are totally alien. It's just a really wild place. I enjoyed the hell out of it. It's definitely very touristy now, which, you know, that is whatever, you know, it's a place that depends on tourism for all of its money, so therefore, you know, it's very run with tourists. But yeah, I don't know, I loved it. We already thinking about how we're going to go back at some point, so
it's fantastic.
Yeah, highly recommend. And the primary way to get around to the country is by driving. There's not a lot of super fun cars to rent, unfortunately. But,
no Versas, no Mirages.
You can rent the little, you can rent a little like European, you know, 1.1 liter diesel hatchback. That is a thing you could rent there. We rented we tried to rent a Skoda Octavia wagon, but they were out of it. So we ended up with a Peugeot 3008 hybrid, which was fine. It's a fine car. It's like a small SUV with a hybrid. yeah, it's a Peugeot. It was comfortable. But if you like driving, it is a great place to drive. I mean, and if you like road trips, it's a great place to road trip. It's very expensive. Gas is like $9 a gallon, which, you know, we'll be paying for this trip for many years until we can go back and do the same thing again. But they do have a good EV infrastructure. So you can rent an EV and drive around. And because it's all geothermal heat and electricity, that is considerably a more efficient way for them to operate motor vehicles. So I would do that probably if I went back. We'd rent an EV.
Cool.
But I loved it. Highly recommend. Lots of fish to eat, and if you like lamb, that's like the meat that they tend to eat, just because they raise sheep there. So there you go.
You're selling me on it. I love it.
Yeah.
All right.
It's great.
So yes, your mini stalkers enjoyed all of your great photo documentary of your trip to Iceland. Gonna make a slight contextual shift. Now, this might be completely my imagination, but back when I first started Lemons, I literally, I started back in the days when it was Jay, Phil, and Nick. Those were your judges, and that's just how it was. And Jay's a racer, and Nick knows a lot, and Phil has tons and tons and tons of knowledge. Then you had you had Steve and a bunch of other folks, and there's some great people that have donned the judge's robe. But I'm noticing, and I don't know if I'm just assigning value to this, that now that the series is entering it's about to start its third decade. Yeah. Really, because you just had the Sweet 16. You now have a huge pool of experienced, competent, fun, intelligent, personable judges. You literally just named off 4 of them right there with Bob, Corey, Mary, Tom. And we're seeing a lot more of these types of people wearing the judging outfits, which it's good in the aspect of, yes, I totally see why you're here seeing me today, but it's bad from the aspect of, no, I will show you no mercy. And here's why, kind of a deal. But I think it's really, I think it's adding something. And I know that in the many jobs that you do, one of the things you didn't list is you've got a very good, a mentorship of folks that are just starting, which, before she moved to Alabama, you had Judge Kristen, and she was fantastic. But I remember the first time she was like, I don't know anything about cars. How am I going to do this? And you're fine. But she understands people. She understands racing. She understands that. So she's been great. Then you've got the flip side of that, Shelley, who sits on the board of the SCCA, and everyone thinks she's an idiot. Well, I'm sorry. New people think she's an idiot. And I remember the one we did with me, like people would come in and start down talking to her, and Randy and I would just cross our arms and go, this is going to be fun. But I feel like there is this really great depth and breadth to the judging bench. And even more so, you're kind of trying to get people out of their region. So you've got Corey, who's a West Coast guy. Now he's raced everywhere, but he's going to be in Colorado. And, so is this a conscious effort, or just, no, it's just the way it works out?
It's a little, it's more complicated than that, but the primary answer would be, it's been a conscious effort. I think the role of judging has kind of evolved over time. When it was Phil and Johnny, it was Phil and Johnny being Phil and Johnny, and all the good and the bad that comes with that.
Or even what's his name? Because he also had he's with the Autopian now, Tortinsky. I remember
Torchinsky.
Yeah.
Jason will show up for the Carolina race usually, but still, you had Phil with all this apocryphal knowledge, and then they were going to most of the races, so you get really familiar with the teams, and that just is not really feasible anymore. Phil got really tired of the traveling. It just kind of wore him out, and he kind of I wouldn't say he's retired, but I think he is very selective about the races that he judges now. It's
Well,
mostly going to be Colorado. Just
much like you, he's married a wonderful person. He enjoys being at
right.
home. He's, he's got pets and family, and he likes
Yeah.
to. They just got back from Luxembourg, and who would you rather spend time with, your lovely bride or a bunch of smelly, stinky racers that are trying to convince you how they're not cheating?
Right. Right. But as it became this, the knowledge of teams kind of traveled with a person for a while. And it kind of, we've gotten to a point where it's a little decentralized now. And I've kind of built this huge database of basic notes on teams. So new people, they show up, they're not like totally cold on it. But the end result of the Phil and Johnny thing was, Phil, when he would look for judges, would always be looking for automotive journalists who may or may not have anything to do with lemons, and under the assumption that these people know cars and they know performance, and that's usually was pretty true. But then it came to the actual penalty box part, and maybe they didn't quite grasp the whole how to be a judge thing. It's a really hard thing to find the right people for if they've never been around lemons. So in doing this and trying to find people from outside lemons, it kind of, I ran into some pretty tough walls with that. And so it kind of became, well, where should we be looking for people? And it was onesie twosie, this guy's available and has raced, so that we'll try him out. And there's some trial and error with that. But I think through all of that, as I ramble through all of this, it basically, in trying people out and trying to find what works, what I kept coming back to as being successful was people who've done this a lot, who know the culture of lemons and know what they want the series to be and what the series means to them, and how to convey that to the people who are showing up for their first or their 10th race or whatever. And so a guy like Bob Griffin or someone like Mary Harris, they know what lemons means to them. And I think having them be the judges and being the ambassadors for the series, I think that's really crucial for making the series something that people enjoy. Because
Yeah, the
you've
whole
done
thing
this
about
enough.
is, it's not just for rich idiots, but we've all seen new teams show up, and it can be really, really scary. And I've seen Mary Harris, throw the proverbial arm around someone's shoulder and go, let me help you through a couple of things. I remember the John Deere team in California.
Yeah.
She wasn't even judging. She popped in. She's like, they have nothing but sugar in their pits and they have no chairs. Could someone just rotate through there, make sure they're not going to die?
I mean, that's what it comes down to, is realizing that a lot of the job of being a judge is really difficult to explain to people, because there's a lot of things going on, and it's kind of hard when it's happening to try and figure out what it's supposed to be. Is you kind of got to know going into it that it's okay to be the parent of these wayward adults. It's okay to be the disciplinarian, but also you're being an ambassador for lemons, and you're kind of representing what it is we want people to get out of it. And you have to make the whole thing fun. And that it's a tall order once you start stacking all these pieces up. So one of the things that I've been really working toward is building a roster of people who, maybe one person of the judging group is really technical and can really call BS on things like, oh, I don't know, boy, that ECU has some weird wires coming out of that that maybe, somebody like Shelly isn't going to notice yet, but as
Kurt and
Shelly's there
Kreger's are
watching,
always really smart on the Honda stuff.
Yeah. And then you've got a Shelly who's really competent and does not take crap from people, and really knows how to handle the penalty box and make it entertaining for everybody. And then there's a whole spectrum of people in between those. I'm a really technical guy, and I'm not the most technical person, but I know how to manage a penalty box. And so finding that mix of people has been really interesting in trying to pair people.
So
And
not
then to
just
your other point,
developing the individuals and understanding that their role of ambassadors, but building them so that they complement each other. That that is an aspect I had not considered. I could see great effort into, I don't want to say make it professional, but certainly evolving it to match the series.
yeah. Well, I never want, I want people to know what the job is mostly. And then within that, I really want judges to kind of find their voice, because I think that matters almost as much as anything else, that, Phil was really good with being the Phil. And who else has been really good at that? You're excellent at being mental. That's highly appreciated. You're very personable with the racers, and people really appreciate that. I don't know what I am. I think I'm just a guy who's around and knows too much minutia. So, but
having been on both sides of you on this one, I feel like you always bring a calming effect. Like, even if you're upset with someone for doing something, your primary response is they need to understand why they can't do this thing anymore.
Yeah, that's the disappointed dad, which always works really well as a disciplinary. Well, it doesn't always work. Some people don't respond to that, but most of the more times than not, it works out. To the point of people being outside of region, I think what I've really been working on this year is just, as you said, building a bench of people who can do this, and it's meant probably a little more travel than we probably will do next year, and hoping to get people to do a little more local type stuff. And that's twofold. Obviously, one, it saves a little bit of money for Lemons, but it brings back to some extent what Phil used to have, which is that, you would see these people 3 times a year. So you develop this rapport and this expectation. So if I can get people in each region who can show up to multiple races, that's super helpful in giving racers an expectation of knowing who's going to be there and what they can expect from them, and vice versa. The judges, as you know, you develop a memory pretty quickly for memorable people one way or another. And that kind of stuff doesn't always come across in communication through a central location. You remember that better than you can communicate it typically. So that's what I'm always looking for the next couple of years, is kind of building some local teams, hopefully. And then one of the other things that you've probably talked about on the show is having Chris and Chrissy together. What I really noticed is that people who already have worked together in some capacity work really well together as judges. So you have Chris and Manny out east, the Sesame Street Outlaws guys.
Both those guys are fantastic. Yes.
Yeah, they're great. They're great together. And it's really awesome that then I have this, 2/3 of a staff that know each other already.
Kurt and Craig,
you don't have
also.
Yeah, Kurt and Craig, Chris and Chrissy, Corey and everybody, because Corey knows everyone. That kind of stuff. I think that's more or less the philosophy behind it in a very long-winded fashion.
But you can't, it's a philosophy and a guidance, and it's so much like everything else that we're doing, that you make these changes and you have a targeted result in mind for these changes, but then secondary and tertiary effects. This is a good thing that we didn't even see coming. So now we have this and that. Yeah. These are all, it's all good stuff. And I don't know. I'm seeing on both sides of it less of a confrontational kind of attitude. And and it does play into the community aspect. I think one of the funniest things is if someone is speeding in the pits and it's 10 miles an hour, people that's idle in first gear, someone is speeding in the pits. Usually we are alerted to it in the penalty box by hearing 14 other teams go slow down, because
Yeah. Yeah.
this is their tribe and they want to protect their tribe, and finding
Yeah.
people that are invested in that. I think I figured it was a difficult and challenging thing. I didn't realize that you were like everything else. You were even deeper into it than we expected. We're not surprised, but we're still impressed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in typical Eric fashion, I've overthought it about 14 different times. And then, you have to kind of be like, oh, well, those 4 things I thought of, they're totally irrelevant. And I have to learn how to just take those 4 things and throw them the hell away. Because, the hard part of having my brain is that I always have too much information, like always too much information. And then I spend an extraordinary amount of time discarding it to find the actual useful thing. So welcome to being Eric Rood.
I think you will find a more sympathetic audience with the people you work with than you probably did going through school. Why do you have so much knowledge in your head?
Yeah.
Oh man, Eric, it's great. This is awesome. Yeah. Okay. And I did not mean to drill that deep into that, but that was exactly the answer that I was hoping for. So if you are on the fence about coming to a Lemons race, for goodness sakes, just come. The judges all want you to be there, and they're going to be nice. Yeah. Seriously, like, Bob Griffin, that guy is just fantastic. Don't be intimidated by his size, but
yeah. Or his robe. He hand sewn robe. It's pretty amazing.
I did not know that. I've seen his robe, and I know they did the Texas thing. I did not know it was hand sewn. That is,
yep.
Yeah. That tracks.
Yeah.
That's very, very Bob thing to do. That is awesome. So kicking again, typically October is when we can expect to see all of the people release their, hell, even IMSA and Formula One put out their schedules for the following year. I do not wish to put you on the spot. And if you are violating some sort of, gag order under threat of violence, but we've seen some cool stuff. Lemons is going to friggin' Road America this year. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm pretty excited about that one. We're doing a parade. I don't know if you got that bit of information. I think you did.
Yes, that's a very CMP-ish kind of awesome, very Wisconsin-y.
Yeah. We're working on the finer details of it. Going back and forth with the chief of police in Elkhart Lake, who is a pretty entertaining guy, as it turns out. But we're ironing out the details of that for what that entails. That stuff should come out in the next week or so. I think we should have timelines, and there'll be a couple of small things people will have to add to their cars. Basically, the parade's going to end after, or the BS is going to end after dark, and the cars are going to have to get back to the race track after dark. So there'll be some requirement for lights, temporary though they may be. But that information should come out in the next week, as soon as we have language that kind of gets that idea across. But anyway, big parade in downtown Elkhart Lake. The track is Road America. I think anybody who's listening to this show understands what that actually means. It's a big famous racetrack, one of the iconic ones in North America. I'm really looking forward to that. That's a month out, I think, first weekend in October.
Mm-hmm.
Judges,
which is a perfect time to be in
Shelley
Wisconsin.
and Aaron. Yeah. It's the leaves should be changing that weekend. And if you've ever been there, it's completely tree lined. And
it's also it's Oktoberfest time.
Yeah, it's a stunning place to be there. It's the Sausage Fest, so obviously there will be beer there. It's going to be a really good time. We think that a lot of people are going to Road America instead of their normal local races. I'm not totally sure.
I do know of several teams that, yes, they Uncle Dave, for example, that is they are going, they gave up they gave up
New Hampshire.
New Hampshire, to do this one because and I was this close, but
Well,
Couldn't-
hopefully we'll be back next year.
Yes.
So it shouldn't be a one-off. I'm gonna knock on wood because you just don't ever quite know. But yeah, so at the moment we have 100 and almost 200 people registered, almost 200 teams registered, and the normal fallout is about a third, so it should be around 125, 130 cars. It's a 4-mile racetrack. There should be plenty of room. So
Absolutely.
that's
that's
the
amazing.
upside of
That's
that.
fantastic.
So should be a really fun and lively paddock also. So
No,
looking forward to that.
because much like CMP, it won't just be the teams. It'll be all kinds of locals coming out to see.
Yeah.
And I imagine, that's a racing town, but
Yeah.
are they prepared for lemons? I'm sure they think they are, but
Yeah. We were last there in 2013 and it was obviously a much lower key event. So yeah, this is going to be, a bit bigger, I think. What else new track wise? I can't say much because it's only just coming together on our end, but there is a track we're going to be going back to next year that we were at not long ago, I think. You can put 2 and 2 together.
computer.
Yeah, so Monza and
so
Silverstone.
tracks. Yes. So new track.
Yeah.
You can't tell us. So Circuit of the Americas.
No.
All right, fine.
Sadly, no.
Is it the Las Vegas Strip? Or are you going to come down here and be the
Yep.
other series that runs the Las Vegas Strip?
We are gonna do a street race to your mom's house. That's what we're gonna do. So
It's a well-paved path, and there's plenty of people that'll give you
Mhm.
directions. All right, fair enough. All right.
Yeah.
So I can't get this secret track out of Eric. All right.
No.
But do you know,
and,
actually, do you know when and I know you guys publish a schedule and then sometimes you add new races, but do you have a target date for the release of the schedule?
we're looking at about a month out, so early October, hopefully around Road America. Plus or minus a handful of days. It's always kind of,
yeah.
The hard part about it, and this is the inside baseball, is that every racetrack operates differently. Like there's even within 2 racetracks under the same quote unquote corporate structure, they always operate just a little bit differently. So some of them won't confirm your date officially until like Jan 1. Some of them won't even give you a date until October. It's all, and some of them will book your date, the Sunday of the event the year before. You'll leave the track with the date for next year. They're all different, and so getting all of these disparate elements together into a somewhat cogent schedule is a bit of an undertaking, and thank God Kim does it and I don't have to, just because it's a lot of work. And even then we inevitably end up with tentative next to a bunch of dates because they're tracks that just don't confirm in ink until whenever, December, January, November. They're all different. So it is a last best guess usually when the schedule comes out, and then there's some finagling once we get the finer points.
All right. That is awesome. So we look forward to that. Speaking of things that are evolving, really digging the stuff you and Nick are doing with the media. Because you guys are releasing videos twice a week now, but
it's once a week. We were doing twice a week for a while, and just to address the elephant in the room to the 9 people who watched it, the Lemons car spotting was not it just wasn't performing in a way that really was worth continuing. Unfortunately, I enjoyed doing it. I love talking about cars extemporaneously. I think a lot of the things people were finding are really funny. And I think
I'm still seeing a lot of Lemons car spotting hashtags,
which is great. That's amazing. And I follow the tag and I laugh at stuff and I like it and I comment periodically. And I hope that it sustains itself as a funny thing that, we it just wasn't worth managing at that point. Maybe there's some other evolution of it we can iron out in the near future. But yeah, we're doing a 1 video a week with the Lemons World, or a wrap up coming out on Tuesday, and considering other ways we can kind of liven up the YouTube channel.
And I'm not trying to sell him out. I think one of the great underrated things about Nick is people don't realize how funny he is, because he's very deadpan, but he understands comedy. And to put the two of you guys together, they're just, I'm either at work or I'm at home on a Sunday when it's too hot to be working on a car, and I'll catch one of those, and I'm laughing and no one understands why, but I bet that everyone that listens to the show is like, oh yeah, that was hilarious.
Yeah. A lot. Nick's real gift is to take like a half joke and then find the cultural reference that like completes it. And his ability to do that is just otherworldly. You know, be like, what if this happens? The hell do you think of that? Like, I feel like I'm coming out of left field, but that's crazy pants. Yeah.
And you two doing this constantly has really added some, it's a really nice understanding each other's timing and mannerisms and that kind of stuff. It's really adding an element to it.
Yeah. John Griffin's a great editor also. He makes us way funnier than we are. Yeah.
Yes. All right. So, we'll play this game, but on the odd chance, where can anyone find all of this lemon stuff that you're talking about? We'll have the links, but run through it in case you just happen to be listening.
Sure. Yeah. So 24hoursoflemons.com is our recently-ish revamped website. I think that was end of last year. We redid the website with new logos and everything.
Yes, lots of Corey Boudoir pics. Everyone was very happy about that.
Yeah. Corey himself too. I think he digs it. Anyway, 24hoursoflemons.com. You can follow us on Instagram at 24hoursoflemons, facebook.com/24hoursoflemons, no spaces or anything in there. And then youtube.com/24hoursoflemons. That's pretty much all of our media. I think we have a TikTok. I don't have anything to do with that. I think it exists. And we have a Twitch stream for the iRacing, so that's still happening too. Lemons Rally, also lemonsrally.com. And that schedule, Jeff Stobbs and I think mostly have that one put together for next year. That might come out sooner. We'll see.
And I don't want to step on Jeff's toes because I want to have him back on the show, but I got to hang out with Jeff at the end of the Alaska rally, and it is interesting how that has evolved, and he is really excited about some new stuff, and I'm kind of geeked. And if you don't know what a Lemons Rally is, if you're not keen to throw on a fire suit and hurl yourself onto a racetrack at questionable speeds in a very questionable car, a Lemons Rally is all the same amount of fun, but you are doing it at completely road safe limits, and it is still every bit the party.
Yeah, it's a good time.
He actually texted me today because he wants to know how to win a car that we're giving away at a car show that we're doing. So I always enjoy Jeff Stobbs. Okay. All right. And do you want me to sell you out on your Insta? Because your Insta still posts interesting stuff, but I don't know how close to that one.
Yeah, every once in a while I post on Instagram at the Rusty Hub, no spaces or underscores. One word.
Okay. All right.
It'll be pictures of my pets and occasionally crappy cars or whatever else.
All right.
I don't even know what I've posted lately. Yeah.
Well, there's always great pictures of Smudge, then your great dog.
Yeah, Annie. Oh, gotta love Annie. Annie dog. Yep.
All right. What else are we missing?
I don't know.
All right, fair enough.
What else do you want to know about me, Mental?
You know what? That's a great question. Post a comment down in the bottom of the video or email us at that. What do you guys want to know about Eric? All right. He is a vast and interesting human being. He is well traveled. He understands things about obscure music and popular music, weird car things. He is an architecture enthusiast. We had Sajeev, and you guys always go back and forth with some of your architectural obsessions.
Brutalism. Yeah.
Yes. You are, obviously an art connoisseur. There's some great stuff behind you. There's some creepy things in your attic that you shared on the Insta that was very troubling. You're a musician. You've got that guy back there, and now you're restoring your I don't know if this is even the right term, but I'm going to say that you are a Midwest enthusiast. They're just Midwest cultural things that you are very, very proud of, that some people would, and I've used them on my friend. She lives here. She's also a traveler. She's in Wisconsin, and I've used some of your jokes on her, and she finds them hilarious. My favorite one being that's as Midwestern as a ham and cheese on rye at a Lutheran funeral.
On potato rolls. It's on
potato rolls. That's what,
always, always.
I said it right when I did the joke, and she chuckled quite a bit at that one.
Yeah. So, well, I don't know. I am an enthusiast of where I live, and I just happen to live in the Midwest. And I think that wherever you live, you should learn about the place you live. That's pretty much it.
Valid. I love it. All right. We're going to move on to your favorite segment with your least favorite host, and we were going to talk about Just the Tip. Former guest and other interesting Midwesterner, Kyle Smith, posted on Haggerty about the 8 most lethal tools in your home shop. And I'm glad Eric is here, because we have seen this not only go wrong at the track, you've stepped in before it went wrong and went, please stop doing what you're doing and install the safety measure before you are impaled, because you end up having to write the safety reports most of the time. Kyle Smith is an avid renter, motorcycle guy, has a Corvair Model A. He's got some cool stuff. Actually, he's got 2 Corvairs because he's got a Greenbrier now. Check out his YouTube channel, Kyle's Garage. And as he mentions, this car hobby is inherently dangerous, not as dangerous as home renovations, but still. And we might get lazy when we're wrenching, because in comparison to actually racing the cars, we're not always as focused. And he listed 8 of the most lethal tools in your shop. And I bet at least one of these, he's got a sub point that you haven't considered. The first one is the drill press or the drill, because we've all been drilling into something that we needed to mount, and then the drill bites and either snaps your wrist off or starts whipping the material around faster than you expect, or grabs a loose piece of your clothing and then winds that around there. So, a hand drill. Yeah. I know that I have snapped my wrist trying to drill into very thick metal. The grinder and angle grinder. I have a huge scar on my neck from when a cutoff wheel shattered. And this was, I met Mary Harris the next week after, and she looked at the still open scab and went, "You're an idiot. You should have gone to the emergency room. That is 2 millimeters from your carotid artery." She's a doctor, if you guys didn't know that. So we joke about the guard on or off. Obviously, I'm a big fan of putting the guard on unless you're trying to get into a tight space and it starts living in maneuverability. But the key factor is these things, even the cheapest Harbor Freight one spins at 8,000 RPMs, right? That's Honda motor speeds. Always use quality attachments, good personal protective equipment, safety glasses, hearing protection, gloves, and that's your minimum. If you've ever seen one of these things get away from you and start skittering across your shop because you're using the, lock button on that one. Yeah. And if it's corded, maybe you can run over and unplug it. But if it's a battery powered thing, you now have a death wheel running around your garage floor looking to take off a toe.
Yeah. Might want to wear the boots too.
Yeah. There are no fireproof flip-flops, Corey. All right. Spring compressor. And this is the quote that I'm stealing from him. "Hell hath no fury like a compressed spring unintentionally released." I have personally seen it at the track. Eric, have you seen one of these disaster things with someone trying to do a compressed spring?
I've seen video of when it goes bad. Yeah. It's a bad time.
Yes. Now, spring compressors tend to be a little more dangerous because these are rented tools rather than purchases, and their instructions might be a little hinky and you still got the thing pointed the wrong direction. A trash can, and this is the one that I'd forgotten I knew. Anything with grease or oil, you need to put in an appropriate metal sealed container, because drying oils, just the act of drying it, they can oxidize, and in doing so, create enough heat to self-ignite that is exposed to nothing completely independent of your input. Met a guy at Gingerman that burned down his shop and lost a really sweet BMW that he had been tweaking on. Now, luckily, everyone in his family was safe, including him. But man, that's just brutal. Eric's going to chuckle at this one because he's seen it 1,000 times. Your ego. And the quote from that one is, confidence comes in two ways: experience and ignorance.
Yep.
Yes. All right. Your floor jack. Use your jack stands every time, even if it's just for a second. The point that Kyle makes in that is the O-rings that keep the cylinder compressed. These are 5-cent Chinese mass-produced O-rings, even for just a second. You're going to trust your safety into there? Just grab a jack stand. You don't even have to like completely place the jack stand and release the pressure onto it, but throw a jack stand under the car while you're under there for just a second. Any knife or cutting blade, you got to do a quick job in the garage, like you're bored, but you don't have time to commit to that engine rebuild. Sharpen all your knives, or just swap out the razor blades in your carpet knife that you've been using for 6 months, because a dull knife is more dangerous than a sharp one. And punches and chisels. I've got some antique chisels in my garage that I've used to hammer a lot of stuff. And if you notice on the end of it where you're hitting it, it starts to mushroom. And that is fatiguing and stressing the metal, and it is going to curl over and start breaking away. And when it does, that is shrapnel headed towards all of your squishy bits that you don't want to be picking metal out of. All right. What did we miss? What did Kyle miss? All right. Go to the article. It's linked in our show notes. Comment on Kyle's article, and then let us know as well. But across the board, no matter what you're doing, please, 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 please be safe.
Yep. I will add one of the things that I think I've learned to internalize from Lemons over the last 13 years is just safety first, which is, it's a thing you say, but I even in working around the house, it's like, I just need to do this thing. And boy, if I just reach to the gutter that's right over there, I was like, and it's like, well, it'll take me an extra 3 minutes to move the ladder, but I won't die. So let's do that instead. The whole Lemons putting an emphasis on safety is no accident, no pun intended, but building a safety culture.
I don't know how many times I've had discussions with serious racers going, "Oh, Lemons is like a death trap." I'm like, really? Because I've seen more people injured today than I did entire last season of Lemons.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is. And
it's a thing.
Especially you experienced folks. If you're walking through the paddock and you see somebody about to do something stupid, you don't have to be a jerk about it. Be like, "Hey man, let me grab you a jack stand. Let me help you out here." Yeah. And it's a cognitive realignment that'll probably get their mind back. Oh yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. All right.
Yeah. Cool
okay.
Stuff.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me, Mental.
Eric, as always, you are welcome to be on, even when you're not pushing an agenda. Thanks for stopping in. I'm sorry to everyone listening. At least you got Eric. You had to listen to me too much. Chris and Chrissy will be back next week. And also next week, you were promised flying cars. And you know that if we're going to have flying cars, we're going to race them. Guess what? It's already happening. We're going to talk to Dan Sloat. I was in the Air Force with Dan, and now he works at the Advanced Air Mobility Institute. And they are talking about their inaugural race of autonomous flying cars. It is happening this December. They have to have pilots in there as a safety backup, but no kidding. We're going to start racing flying cars. They are working on multimodal. This is so friggin' cool. Dan is a high energy, really interesting human being. So, Chris and Chrissy will also be back now. So, now Eric won't be here, but well, actually what? Eric, if you want to come on back, we'll talk about flying cars with Eric and everybody else. All right. I don't have a Bluetooth speaker, so I'm just going to say, folks, everyone, thank you for downloading us. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this week's edition of Everyone Racers. I hope you're going to join us in the world of driving, racing, and building, because everyone can be a racer. And Tom and Mary and Corey and Bob are here to make sure of that. Even you. If you enjoyed this podcast, subscribe. It's totally free. Then go to iTunes and give us a 5-star rating. Your package is in the mail. I mailed it to Dave, our last 5-star rating, and actually threw a bunch of extra stuff in there. Even if you hated us, give us 5 stars and tell us why. Unlike Tyler, who gave us 4 stars and then had to go back and realize that he'd only given us 4 stars. If you have any questions, show ideas, drop us a comment on our Facebook page, Everyone Racers. Email us at everyone.racers@gmail.com. You can still text me at 484-243-0455. I got some really cool junk pictures this week. It was awesome. Find us on Instagram at everyone.racers, YouTube and Facebook, obviously, even Reddit/E1R. Thanks again, and keep that shiny side up. Unless it's a flying car, then just keep the wheels down. I don't know.